Welcome to Authors Allies, the podcast where we dive into the world of authors, books, and the art of storytelling. Join us for in-depth interviews with celebrated authors, insightful book reviews, and practical tips on marketing your literary masterpiece. After 20 years publishing magazines, I, your host, Rebecca Paciorek, am so thrilled to be able to work within my dream of promoting authors and their books. Whether you're a seasoned writer or just starting your journey, we've got something for you. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's explore the fascinating world of books together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Authors Allies podcast. Today, we have a really special and fascinating guest. Halina Schafer is with us, and she has a neat story which just proves that it is never too late to pursue your passions, no matter what they are. Halina has had not one, but two fulfilling careers before becoming an author. She started out in medical pathology. I have to read that because I'll get those words wrong on us there. And then she transitioned to the field of mental health. And she spent over 2 decades as a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, and a supervisor in those roles. And now she's combined her love of science and her understanding of human emotions into a thriving third career as an author of children's books. So she's even tackling complex topics like climate change as well in her upcoming STEM book. Join us now as we dive in to Halina's inspiring story. Welcome, Halina. I'm so thrilled to have you today on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yay, you have had such an interesting job. How in the world does a person go from pathology, medical pathology, to social worker to author? Those are 3 very different careers. You want tell us how that happened?
Well, I would have to start back in my childhood to connect the dots, so to speak. Maybe blue dots, but
there you go.
I was quite sick as a child, and that led to about 2 years of constant interaction with doctors, being in the hospital, a lot of medical issues. It took almost 2 years for doctors to diagnose me with lupus. And wow. Lupus is an autoimmune disease for people who may not know. So what happens is your body starts to attack itself. Okay. And I'm a curious person by nature. I want to know why. I want to know what. So literally every step of the way, I was asking questions, even wow. At the age of 10, 11, 12. And as I moved past the critical nature of the disease early on, and, moving forward, by the time I got back in school, because I was homeschooled for quite a while, I was going into the 8th grade, and obviously then into high school. And when I got to high school, it was fun because I knew that there were tracks, so to speak, in high school where I could start to explore careers. And honestly, I wanted to be a doctor, but that didn't pan out financially within the family. And so I said, okay, what could I do? And pathology came to mind early on. And by the time I was in high school, I was already working in a pathology lab.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, doing not really technical things, but put me in an environment where I was learning every day. So that brought me into medical pathology for over 20 years. My degree was in the sciences, but some of my courses were biochemistry and, different aspects of the human body and how it works and how it fails.
Okay.
And back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a point in time, still working pathology, where the AIDS epidemic was going into full bloom, sadly.
Sure.
And I was very intrigued by what allowed one person not to be cured, but to live, and another to succumb and pass. And that mental health piece to me is what motivated me more toward career change, particularly when I was told in medical pathology that I had to go for an advanced degree. That the career was changing. I was supervising in a laboratory and they wanted a higher degree and so on. When I thought about that, I said, do I want to do that in the hard sciences again? Or do I want something else? And the answer became obvious. I wanted to do something else. And then I kind of toyed with the idea, if I go back and get a degree in psychology first, because I would need that, then from there, what next? Do I go on for a PhD in psychology, or what are my options? And a friend of mine who was a school psychologist, PhD, said, I did the same thing you're thinking about doing, went back to school later in life. I was late 30s, early 40s. And she said, I wouldn't do the PhD at this point. She said, obviously my, decision. And I thought about it and I said, yeah, that makes sense, because I was one of the last graduating classes. I happened to have gone to Stony Brook University in New York for my master's in clinical social work. And I was one of the last groups that could literally take their licensing exam in their senior, their finishing year, and walk out being licensed. And that's how I got in that field. My first job in that field just so happened to be mental health and substance abuse. And once I was in there, I really felt, that I had a good basis for the mental health stuff. But while I was in there, I was also pursuing credentialing in substance abuse. So it was a lot of, classwork and so on. But that's how I got to where I got to in those two careers. When I was ready to retire, thinking about retiring.
And how long ago was that? Sorry, how long has it been since you actually retired?
My last day of work was December 31st, 2013.
Okay, so it's been a while. Okay.
So it's been a while.
So we have perspective there.
Yeah. John and I had already bought this house in South Carolina. We were both from New York originally. And I said, well, I'll just keep my licensing sort of in the background, not do anything with it until I make a decision. Do I want to work while I'm down here, even part-time? But came to the conclusion, no.
Okay.
At that time, my family was growing. One of my nieces was having the first of the next generation of children in the family. And that's what inspired me. Originally, it was a scrapbook, which later became Fiona and the Extra Special Invisible Gifts, my first book.
Yay!
I really didn't intend on any level as I was putting it together. It was strictly family pictures and captions, a word, a phrase, or whatever that I remembered from an event, a family event.
Wait, that's this one? We're talking about this one, right? Look, everyone, it's beautiful.
When I presented that as a first birthday present to my niece and obviously her daughter, who had turned one. She and her husband said, "You've got to do something more with this. You really do."
Aw.
And that's what, again, my curiosity. Well, what would that take? How would I do that?
Yeah.
And the adventure began. It took me, by the time it was actually published, it took me over 3 years. Needless
Wow.
to say, yeah. There were so many decisions to make, ultimately deciding to self-publish.
Okay.
By that time, I had joined some writers groups and different, exposing myself to different types of writing and what have you. So it was finally my decision to say, okay, I'm going to self-publish. And at that time, the self-publishing process, or from a get the book into print perspective, really, my learning curve is still going up in that area, because
They change it every day anyway.
that's what I was going to say. I can't keep up with the technology.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
that expression, old dogs, new tricks. Well, that's me. I'm the old dog, because I'm trying to learn these new tricks and they just don't make sense to me. But here I am, 3 books out,
That's awesome.
all self-published, and a 4th book that I'm working toward getting published.
That's great. So I'm sitting here looking through the book, and I know, if people are just listening instead of looking at the video, they won't be able to see the cover that I just held up. But you had said that you took the book, the scrapbook you had made, and turned it into a book. So are the illustrations in Fiona's book here basically all coming from the original photos that were in your scrapbook, and then you had an artist draw those for you?
They are. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That alone, I mean, how long did it take just for the illustrations? Because I'm thinking you could have put the text together in 5 minutes, knowing, I mean, you're a great writer. So the text wouldn't have taken you any time. I'm guessing getting the illustrations, was that kind of the big part on that?
It certainly was. First of all, finding an artist.
Yeah, that's tough. I know.
It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to get somebody to do this. But then you want someone that you can work with who has an idea of what you want. Her explanation to me was, she had been, let me back up a second and say, I met her because she was doing art classes at a local store that had an art department and framing and,
Oh, nice.
all of that.
Okay.
And I stopped to talk to her one day, and I said, do you have any idea about illustrators? And she said, well, tell me what you're doing. I explained to her I had pictures that I wanted to put into some format that I could use within a book. And she said, well, I'd be interested. It's one of those right place, right time for both of us. And that's how that started. As I progressed with the book itself, the editor I was using at that time, when he went through the manuscript of the book, he posed something to me that I never thought of. There was an element that I wanted to put in the book about all children are the same. All children, if they're given the same opportunities, will blossom, and so on. I had the birthday party aspect at the end of the book.
Okay.
And he said to me, knowing that piece that I wanted to talk about all children, about friendships, relationships, he said, why don't you put the birthday party aspect at the beginning of the book and see what you can do with the other piece that you wanted. And it was so spot on. The first time I had ever worked with an editor.
Sure.
He edited children's books, and it was so spot on that it gave me the perfect spot at the end of the book to put some graphics
Love
of
it.
children, different races, different colors, and so on, which I did through Canva.
Yeah. So these
I-
are Canva versus the Illustrator.
right, right.
Well, that's a good, it goes well with it, even though it's not the same. I'm surprised how well that goes with it, but it does like that. It still flows very nicely.
I
So,
knew what I wanted to do, so it was, it was pretty easy at that point. Once he opened up that door for me,
yeah,
I wanted the story to flow. There's the picture in the book of Fiona with the giraffe,
so cute.
which I use again later to show how much she has grown.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, I want parents, remember, this book is really written for the reader just as
Right.
much as the child. So I wanted parents to recognize that there are ways that we can look at child development without having any background in it,
Sure.
stages of development and so on, because that was a big part of my learning process going into social work. So,
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So the looking at that book, and then I kind of bounced to, when I was looking at your books, then I bounced to this one, the Who Found Who.
yeah.
So looking through them, they're the same illustrator, I take it, because the art looks similar to
Yes.
me.
But this was all her talent. It was no pictures other than meeting the bird.
Okay. So yeah, so this one is about your bird. That's your actual parrot.
Yes.
Right? He's your parrot. So that's pretty cool. So tell us his name on the front here.
His name is Georgie.
Georgie. So for those of you who can't see, you'll have to, I'll try to put a picture. Maybe we can put a picture of this one in some of the graphics. But Georgie is very cute. And you still have Georgie, right?
I do. It's going on 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was an adventure.
I'm sure.
I was working outside in the yard and came into the house, was thirsty, had a glass of iced tea, walked back out and said, oh my goodness, it looks like it's going to rain. Started picking up all my things, that, little trowels and what have you, and walking around the side of the house. Now, we live in a cul-de-sac, so sound is sometimes bounces off things and you're not sure where it's coming from. I heard this horrible squawk. That was very loud, and I didn't know where it came from. So I froze for a couple of seconds until I actually heard him again, and then I could track the sound. He was sitting on the roof of my car in the driveway.
Oh my gosh, he wanted a ride.
Here was Georgie. Well, I didn't know who he was, hadn't named him, obviously. Walking back and forth on the rail of my car.
Oh my gosh.
And when I came around, I was very hesitant to get too close to him. So I approached it, kept talking to him in a normal tone, and came closer and closer.
Okay.
And what was interesting was it took me probably a good 15 minutes to make a decision that I'm pretty sure this bird was raised.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to out in the wild. I put my hand up and he hopped right on.
Oh, wow. You're so brave.
I still think back to that day and say, yeah, that was brave. He could have, come at me or whatever. But he is a sweetheart. This book became my imagining what he was through while he was out in the wild.
I love it. It's
I
so cute.
made attempts to find an owner, put up signs, posted on a community blog, called vet's office.
Oh, wow.
To, local, to say, if anybody reports, let me know. But it didn't take much. And I said, that's it. He's mine. He's ours.
You bonded.
We did. Absolutely did. And the point up to which I start sort of retrospectively in the story saying, what he must have been through. All of that was true. When he heard John's voice, my partner's voice, John, when I was trying to get a piece of bread and a little cup of water to put on the roof of the car, minute he heard John's voice or saw John, I don't remember which, he flew to the next door neighbor's roof.
Oh, okay.
The minute John walked away, he came right back to the car. So that was all before I had put my hand up to him.
Oh, okay.
And he's just been my little friend. I call him my little buddy. He's a Quaker parrot. Okay. That's one of the smallest breeds. So he's only about, let's say, 8 to 10 inches tall. We tried teaching him some words, but I'm not sure if he has a problem with hearing or something with his speech. The one phrase he did latch on to is John would always say, "What's up, Georgie?" And so if I walk out of the room and then come back in, he says, "What's up?"
That's awesome. I love that.
When I decided I was going to turn this into a story, this would be a new adventure for me because I said, how do I take something that happened with me, but incorporate what I think happened to him? So I made it into an easy reader chapter book. So that's approximately ages 5 through about 8.
Okay.
And once I narrowed my perspective down to that age group, then it was easy. When I'm writing for children, to me, it is very important to be able to put down verbiage that they can actually grasp. I don't want it above their head. I don't want it too simple, then they'll get bored. So I discovered something called the Flesch-Kincaid readability scale. And what you do with this program is you just plug in paragraphs, cut and paste, plug in a paragraph, and it does its magic, and it will tell you approximately what age, what grade the reading level is.
Very helpful.
It goes by how many words in a sentence, how many syllables in a word, how many words in a sentence, how many sentences in a paragraph. And that's how it analyzes what you've put on paper. And does it jive with what you want for an age expectation? So that was another piece of my learning curve.
Yeah, that's really neat, though. Very helpful.
One of the places that I would go to market my books is there's a child development center right off the edge of this community. And the director of that program, when I went in to introduce myself and explain I had a book for infant through preschool and then easy reader chapter book, he said, "Oh my goodness, I got to get you in here." I would do some reading with the kids, but then at the end of their day, I would stick around and sell the books to the parents.
Nice. Good idea.
And one of the pieces that I decided was important, that if you have a child who is just learning to read, and again, developmental process, just learning to read, how can you reinforce that process as, oh, look how good you're doing? And so one of the things that I did, if you can see up in here, I use bigger font
Yeah. And
for the
some
word
colored.
big, and
Okay.
the color red for the word red, so that if they're just, I'm sorry, that's on page
Looks like
7.
page 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
Um, it gives them a sense of accomplishment, which
I
I'm
love
very
that.
happy about. But
Yeah.
but this book really was interesting in some other ways, because I'm connected to an organization here called Turning Pages.
Okay.
And that is a literacy program for adults.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited to hear about this because I know you said something in your bio about literacy issues and dementia with this
Right.
particular book.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I started going to some of their meetings and events and what have you, just prior to the holidays, they always do a book sale.
Okay.
So they invite all local authors in.
Oh, nice.
And I obviously realized very quickly that because of the age level for this book, this might be a good addition to their library
Sure.
working with people. And they were very, very excited about that, as was I. But the dementia aspect was another interesting one. I like to do local events, and my church invited me to do a book sale one day. And a woman came up to me, and she had been flipping through the book. And
Mm-hmm.
she came up to me and she said to me, I know this is going to sound funny, but I'm going to buy this book for my mom. Now, the woman I was talking to was probably 60,
Okay.
and I had seen her mother once or twice with her, and I knew she had some difficulties. And I said, just help me to understand, why this book and your mom. And she said, my mom is progressing, unfortunately, moving through stages of dementia. She can be in the moment, she can be present, but like anyone with dementia will tell you, well, family will tell you, memory goes retrograde. So you lose what you did yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you land back at age 20. I'm picking a number. So she said, my mother still knows how to read. And she said, adult books are just too difficult for her.
Ah.
Too long. What happens in one chapter doesn't necessarily get carried over in the other, and but much too difficult for her brain to process. Well, she bought this book for her mom, and within a week or two, she came back and she said to me, I love this book for my mom. She said, my
Really?
mom reads it almost every day. She's
Oh, I
she
love that.
I know. And she said, I can hear her laughing because there's some funny stuff in there that the bird goes through. She says, I hear my mom go, uh-oh, because there's some adventure stuff in there that you don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen next. So the book made an impression with this lady. So you never
Wow.
know. You never know where your readers are going to come from. Seriously.
That is
Um,
amazing. I mean, did she ever have a bird, or this
no,
lady just
no.
thought it would be an interesting thing to try? And,
She said
you know,
her mom always loved animals,
I love it.
and it struck a chord with her.
That
So,
is so neat. And I wouldn't have thought of that. I know that we're afraid that my dad is actually starting to go through some dementia. And that's exactly what happens. He tells us stories that we're far
In the past,
in the
correct.
past every time we see him. It's funny though, because each time he retires younger or he does something younger, it changes just slightly, but
Right.
it's always kind of fun. And I wouldn't have thought, I know he has stopped reading the newspaper because he
Uh-huh.
thought it was getting to be, I forget what the words were he used. He didn't quite want to admit that it was too much, but
Yeah.
I know, heck, it's hard for me to read books sometimes, so I can only imagine. But I wouldn't have thought of that. Is that something that you've explored any further since you're so inquisitive, or is it
Well,
just something you've kind of tucked away for now?
not when you say explored, for me, what I do is when I'm promoting the book someplace, I talk
Yeah.
about that aspect.
Yeah, because that's such a great story to share.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see that on your social media. I mean,
Okay.
I am the marketing person and all, but I think that's a great story to share, and that's really helpful, I think, in general for all children's authors, because when I think about that, I could see, you know, various memory care facilities
Yeah.
wanting to maybe do some things with books like that. And even more so, things that people would possibly remember from their past, especially if someone had a bird growing up or has had a bird, like in their lifetime,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. That would be really neat.
Mm-hmm.
When you were writing these two books, they're very different, I notice,
Right.
from You Can't Make Me.
Right.
And I know that you're working on a STEM book now as well. And so I kind of laughed, Halina, when I was looking at the books last night, because I thought, okay, well, your third career press, and it was like three different careers. And I looked at these three books in my pile. I'm like, oh, look, it's like third career books. So this book is very different, I feel like, from these first two as well.
Yes.
And knowing more about your background with the therapy, the counseling, all of that, the social work stuff, it makes more sense to me. How did you come upon doing You Can't Make Me then? Because this is really just for the people that are listening. If a person were to look through this book, I would kind of say this is like half workbook, half book, half
Yes.
journal, half workbook kind of a thing.
Yes. Yes.
It's not just a story. How
Yeah.
did you come up with this idea after having written these creative stories? It's so different.
Well, it's not actually. Again, because of my background, I'm very much aware of developmental age and so
Okay.
on. And I started to write this book right around the time where COVID was going to get us all in together, which meant all children were under the same roof with siblings, with parents, maybe another generation, grandparents in the same household. And I thought, oh my God, these kids are going to go off the rails. Children, especially at that tweens age, 9 through 14, maybe even a little older, they need, that is part of their developmental process. They need to interact face to face with their friends. They're exploring everything.
Okay.
They need to bounce it off their friends. What would you do if, that kind of thing. Part of what I did in my last position as a clinical social worker was I supervised clinicians who ran an adolescent program, and I wrote the programming aspect of it. So it wasn't difficult for me to think about what is this going to be like emotionally for everybody under the same roof. So what I did was one by one, I just picked an emotion and started to write about it. I wanted kids to understand that every one of us is different, that emotions actually happen on a scale.
Okay.
You can be not happy, you can be mad, or you can be in a rage, so that they start to understand it really is a sliding scale.
Sure.
And if you're at the far end of this scale, how do you tone it back? What can you do? And that's where the piece, only you can change how you feel.
I love it.
As a therapist, I always worked cognitive behavioral therapy. So once you bring in awareness of what the issue is, then you work with, we always said the ABCs, antecedent, what precipitated, what behavior did you display, and then what was the consequence or outcome of how you handled it. And that's why I knew I needed to incorporate journaling. Yes. Because I give them scenarios. And that's when you said there's no story here. Well,
I mean, there are. The examples are fabulous. And
yeah, I give them those little scenarios to see if they can relate to any of them as to what brought on what they were feeling. And then I coach them in the process of journaling so that they can go back next time that emotion comes up. They're going to be better equipped to identify it, better equipped to see what didn't work last time. And I say to them, that's not going to stop you from going through something again.
Right.
But now maybe you will be able to see what didn't work last time. Did it work any better this time? And what else can you do to change it for even the better? So
I love this so much because I grew up in the 70s. And it was, I'm Gen X, and all of the memes and the videos you see are so true. Like, if I screwed up, right, I would hear when your dad gets home, and I'd be scared, wondering what would even happen, or I'd be, sent to my room to think about it.
Right.
Okay, well, I didn't know what I was thinking about. Like, and my parents were great. I feel like I grew up very all-American. I don't really have any complaints, but I don't have that emotional intelligence that I'm learning these things now. I'm like, well, what do I do? What did I do wrong? What should I do better next time? And oh my goodness, do you, having been in that background and then writing the book that you wrote, do you feel like the generation that we're raising is going to at least stand a better shot than us poor Gen X kids walking around not knowing what to do with our emotions? For my kid, Halina.
I'll tell you something. It's been a journey for me with this book, because unfortunately, like I said, it was when COVID was first taking off, so to speak. Our local school district was very interested in the book. Okay. And then schools shut down. Then they went, their budgets were blown to pieces. So it didn't go the way I had hoped it would go.
Sure.
But even now, when somebody buys that book, or sometimes even just standing at a table and looking at the book, I've had lots of feedback, parents, grandparents, school social workers saying, oh boy, we need this, I need this. Very recently, I sold a book to someone who was working with children who are at risk.
Okay.
And she said, I really need to have this. She said, for myself. To help them.
Okay.
And so it's got broad implications for who may want it and use it. I've had feedback from parents and grandparents who say, where was this book when I was raising?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah. Well, and when I was,
Yeah.
Like it's
so, it's there. I write for children. But the implications are take it where it needs to be. That editor that I mentioned before, who surprised me with the first book and made everything fall into place, he surprised me again when he edited that book, and he said to me, I knew he had 2 young boys. He said, "Boy, are you going to make me think before I open my mouth again."
Right? Oh my gosh. That's amazing though.
Yeah. So
Well,
every time I do another project, I kind of surprise myself. I don't know how else to say it. Working toward this next book, the STEM book, that just kind of happened because I'm always very interested in ecology. And I can't say John and I spend a lot of time, but probably at least once a year, we go out to the coast. We're about 2.5 hours away from South Carolina coast. We love Hilton Head. We love Charleston. There's a whole cluster of islands. But we do like to travel, and we're doing more and more of that, in our retirement. But no matter where we've gone, coastal here in the United States, it's clear that climate change is wreaking havoc with not just coasts, but with animal populations, with vegetation. You can see the link between the two because one of the characters in this book coming up is a manatee. And I just think manatees are the coolest animals.
They really are. They're neat.
They look like God took all the leftover spare parts and put them together in one animal.
I love it.
It's got a face like a hippopotamus. It's got a tail like a beaver. It makes noises like an elephant. It's just a fun animal. But they feed off of seagrass.
Okay.
And along the coast, seagrass is being killed off rapidly.
Oh, wow.
Between things like red tide, which is happening from the water heating up so much. I work very closely with the Marine Institute in Charleston.
Okay.
And the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources is one of my best research places. I'm a researcher at heart. Give me a topic.
Very obvious. I love it. I love it.
I'll find out as much as I can. And I actually had the book edited for content by 3 top people at the Marine Institute in Charleston.
Oh, wow.
They each took their specialty. The director of that institute had to, I'll say, farm out the piece on bats because I knew bats were experiencing some major issues because of climate. And she said, "We do marine things. We don't do mammals."
So we need a little help on that one, huh?
Yeah. So she found me someone to take a look at that. But, that's a passion of mine.
Yeah.
I love it. Again, illustrations. I was looking for an illustrator who would do animals within the context of a story.
Sure.
And I'm telling you, I find more people through my church network. This woman was an artist, and same as like what they did for me with the book sales, they had her bring her artwork in and do an art show. And she had one picture there that absolutely blew me away. And I approached her. I said, "Have you by any chance ever thought of illustrating a book?" And she said, "Maybe."
Let's chat, right?
Exactly. And I said to her, when you paint, I said, it is so obvious. She did a painting that were 2 brothers. She explained to me later, she knew these kids. The older one, who was probably only maybe 3 years older than the younger one, was giving the younger one a piggyback ride.
Aw,
And this picture touched me,
I
but
love
the
it.
animal picture, um, I can't think of the name. It's an African elk. I can't think of the name of it, but it's got the horns, the big horns that
Oh
curl.
yeah, yeah. The yeah.
She did that, but she did it in a very whimsical way.
Oh,
And
neat.
so she and I started talking, and I explained to her that if we can coordinate and do this together, it's going to be different because you work off your imagination, but I need you to work off my story through your
Right.
imagination.
Yeah.
So we went through a process of, she would do a certain picture. I would describe the picture for her, mental image, and she would come up with a rough sketch, and I'd say, "Oh, perfect, but."
Right. Right. No, that makes sense.
And then finally, probably half, maybe even 2/3 of the way through, she really clicked with
Okay.
everything I was trying to do.
I love it.
So we did. We went to contract on the pictures, and I bought everything outright for myself. And that's going to be the illustrations. I'm giving her credit
Oh,
for
sure.
the
Yeah.
illustrations and all of
That's
that.
fun for both of you that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I had to disappoint her that it didn't come out last year. I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, I can get it out this year. But the past year has been kind of riddled with some health issues that really prevented me from
Yeah.
doing everything I needed to. Because of shoulder surgery, there was a point where I couldn't even put my hands on the keyboard,
Oh
so
my
I couldn't do
goodness.
anything. But I'm definitely on the mend, and so now you have it. That's me in a bigger
That
than
is
a nutshell.
that is so exciting. And I love that what you were saying about how the books really can appeal to all different people. Because when I look through them, basically, I see sort of, I originally was seeing kind of the three different age groups, right? You've got
Right.
the young one, the middle one, the kind of the preteen, and then to me the STEM one, kind of goes through all of it. But
Yeah.
thinking about the climate change and all of the things that go on, and thinking about how busy we get as humans,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we're parents, and you know the whole time we were raising our son, and we only have one, and I had the glory of working from home, so I don't know how other working mamas do it, but I was so busy that I was fully focused on raising my family, feeding my family. I
Right.
didn't have time to think about climate change or anything. And so I would learn something from those books. You see what I so
Mm-hmm.
that's really neat. And so for everyone, for the parent reading the book, for the grandparent reading the book, the same thing with the journal that you did. These are opportunities for all of us to just keep growing, right? Like
Yes.
we can
Yes.
just keep growing always. I mean, just like you, changed careers a couple times, you've got these different books going. I love that. And it's really neat to me too how your books are, they're still different. You've got two different illustrators now that you've worked with. The illustrations in You Can't Make Me, I believe I had read, or you maybe told me before, that you did those,
I
right?
did.
The
I
pencil
did.
drawings. So you've got a couple of different styles here. This is spanned over several years with what you've
Right.
been doing, and you've learned a ton. What kind of advice would you give to aspiring authors? Looking back on what you've learned, and I know you said you've had to kind of learn the hard way, right? You jumped in, and you're a researcher, so thank goodness for that, because you knew how to find it. What do you think that aspiring authors could do today to make it easier on themselves versus the path that you've gone, you think?
Well, given my age, I'm in my 70s. My biggest hurdle was technology.
Okay.
Um, the writing came easily. I think any writer, any aspiring writer, has a lot of imagery of a story. It doesn't have to be necessarily in pictures, but they may know what they want to get across to people, my first piece of advice is write.
Yeah. Just do it, right?
Sit down and do it. I will tell you that I don't have any rituals or routines about my writing. When something hits me, it hits me. It's that cosmic 2x4 that gets me upside the head.
My husband calls that a Polish interrupter. That's what he says. He's Polish, and he says a 2x4 is what they would call a Polish interrupter. And I'm like, okay. So you said that, it made me think of that. But so when you get that Polish interrupter, you just have to sit down and you do it before you lose it, right?
Exactly.
Before it goes away.
Even if you just, outline a couple of things. I have written some short stories.
Okay.
And again, sparked by something in my life. It doesn't necessarily have to be me personally, but usually that's the way it comes. Because if it caught my attention, it's personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Hand it off to somebody else when you think you're done with it.
Okay.
And ask them what they think of it. Now, I'm not talking about grammar. I'm not talking about, developmental process if you're writing for children. Story.
Okay.
A story has always been communicated mouth to mouth to ear. However, we've reached a new point in my lifetime, where books are not as important anymore. And I mean book in hand, turning pages. Kids go on Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of schoolwork is done on Kindle. And that doesn't sit well with me. Again, old dog, new tricks. It's so interesting because when you want to help someone understand something, whether they learn or not is sort of on them or on the family. And just like going back to my book on Fiona, parents need to help develop the interests of a child.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of in that same position again with this fourth book. And I just got a copy of a STEM book that won an award.
Oh, okay.
Because I wanted to see, it's actually, the woman who wrote this book is a photographer, and she was always a marine photographer. So I got this book. I just started reading it, and I happen to be a nighttime, get into bed, read for half an hour kind of person.
Same.
And her pictures tell everything.
Oh, wow.
But she's got all the background, everything kids who are interested might want to know.
Sure.
Now, when I think of STEM programs, which is science, technology, engineering, medical, they're also adding more letters to that with math and art.
Yes.
How long do we think those kinds of programs, and I'm not hoping at all that they are not going to be funded, but we have to think about that. So if you're going to have a dissolution of a very structured way for children to learn and explore what excites them, how else are we going to do it? Well, I'm hoping that books stick around for a while, but I'm also interested in the benefit of doing things, for example, as a Kindle book.
Yeah.
So that's something I need to learn more about as I come into this fourth book. I will tell you, I have that book right here that this woman wrote. Her name is Michelle Cusolito, and
Okay.
it's called A Window into the Ocean Twilight Zone.
Oh, wow. We'll put that in the show notes for people too if they want to check it out.
24 Days of Science at Sea.
Oh, wow. That sounds neat.
So just as an example, she will give you pictures of what's going on the ship
Okay.
that she's on.
Gotcha.
Because she joined this research team to be
Sure.
able to do stuff. But she puts
Wow.
in a lot of the everyday, sit down and
Sure.
eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
and what it's like on a research ship.
Okay.
For me, going on a ship, and John and I have done this and we'll do it again, is going on a cruise. Now,
Yeah.
I know that cruises are not the best for environment, particularly coastal environment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what do? I research which of the ships is most ecologically sound.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's nice.
So that's how we come up with the trips. But it gives me an opportunity to see how other countries are handling things. Mm-hmm. I mean, John and I have been so blessed to be able to travel to places that never in a million years as a kid would I have thought I would ever have gone. So I'm always interested in how are we handling ecology? Yeah. But from the author side, how do I take what I learn and put it back out again for a kid to say, hey, that's cool. Let me find out more about that. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this fourth book, to excite. If I catch one kid's attention, that to me is, I've done my job. That's how
I love that. Well, and I think you're going to catch some parents' attention too, which, then they will hand that down to their kids, I mean, growing up, we didn't think to recycle anything, I mean, we did have because I grew up in the country, we did like save all the food and we just tossed it onto a pile and we composted our food basically, but we didn't think of a lot of things, right? And so, as a parent, I'm like, oh, well, we always heard save the trees, so we're saving the trees. We recycle every week, we have the extra trash cans, we do all the things and try to learn, we're all learning as we grow, as we go, and all of that. You mentioned that you like the hard books versus the Kindle, which I will admit that because I'm such a reading nerd myself, I had a very tough time switching over because I love the smell of a book, the feel of a book, all of it, right? You know what convinced me though was I bought nightlight after nightlight after nightlight, those little book lights, and they would all just die so quickly. So for me to be able to lay in bed or wherever and read instead of being the kid with the flashlight like I always was has been perfect. But also because I read all the time, like I don't do television. I mean, there's years I've read 200 books in a year. I don't have room for that. So I've kind of had to switch over logistically. Yeah. But what's neat about, to me, what's really cool with the children's books and the STEM books and things like that is the availability of technology to enhance that learning. I've seen printed books where you're looking at a kid's book and you can take a photo of a QR code and then watch a video that goes with it. I've read Kindle books where you can click on the link and then go out to the video or different things like that. And so, like you said, you're always, wanting to learn more and you're that researcher. That's what's really great about the technology that's coming out. One of the great things about it is that hopefully, like you said, hopefully we can snag some of those people, right, that are wanting to learn more. And I can't think that books are ever really going to go away. I feel like they're just going to keep changing, like they
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
Even now, I was thinking about this the other day. You probably remember this too. As a kid, I used to have the read along books. Remember, we'd have our little
Yes.
record player and then it would
Yep.
ding to turn the page. I
Yep.
mean, Kindle basically has that now too. It will read it out loud while a kid is reading the book. And so it's just changing. And you were kind of picking on yourself earlier saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but having seen what you've been doing, I'm pretty sure that you are not an old dog that cannot learn new tricks, Halina. The tech may be difficult, but it's changing for everyone. It's
Yeah.
not just changing for you. And so that's the thing. Yes, it may take you a little longer to grasp some of those tech pieces
Mhm.
because they don't always make it easy to learn, but you've done a nice job of really learning to do that yourself and to self-publish the 3 books the way you have so far. That's just amazing to me. You mentioned the Kindle, so your books are not on Audible currently. They're not
No.
as ebooks as of yet.
No.
So how does a person get your books? Do you sell specifically from your website? Can they go to Amazon? Where can people find you? And keep in mind, I will put all these links in the notes for everyone too, but
Okay. The first 2 books are on Amazon.
okay. Fiona and Who Found Who, the 2 color books.
Right.
Okay.
The third book, You Can't Make Me. This was a learning experience in another way for me because I did find out that I wanted a spiral bind
Yes.
so that when children wanted to write, this book laid flat.
Very
I
helpful.
didn't want any interference from anything. Did you ever watch somebody try and write with a
Oh,
book that's tight? You're trying to hold this
yes.
side
It's
open.
awful. I have some like that.
So this book I wanted with the spiral bind,
Okay.
and found out that the place where I worked with to get my other books in print would not do this.
Yeah.
So that's where, thank you, you came up with a printer who will do this. I did have one out in the Midwest
Okay.
where I got the first volume of it printed. But I was looking for something that I had better input on.
Okay.
That place that I worked with was strictly a printing company.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I formatted everything the way they asked it to be done, which was great. But that formatting didn't apply to like
Right.
publishing, printing kind of people.
Okay.
So this was, again, another learning process. I forgot the question.
No, well, I was asking where to get your books. So for that,
Okay, I'm sorry.
because we have that one is not able to go through Amazon either. Amazon does not do the binding. So I
Right.
know if someone goes to your website and they
Yes.
click on the books, the first 2 will basically take them to Amazon, and then that
Correct.
one will take them to Lulu.
Lulu. Right.
And then if they want signed copies, they're basically emailing you, right? And then you'll take
Yeah.
care of that from
Yeah.
there if someone wants a signed copy.
Absolutely. I still do some of my local events,
Okay.
which I love because then it gives
Yes.
me an opportunity to speak with parents, grandparents, whoever comes
Okay.
looking for a children's book. At which point I sign them right there.
Sure.
It's a lot of fun.
Nice. Now, for people who may be listening that might be somewhat local to you, pretty much how would they find out about your events? Would they want to just get on your email list, go to your Facebook page, that type of thing? Are you announcing?
Yes,
Okay.
all of the above.
Okay, good.
My Halina Schafer author page, I put posts on.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I just put one on yesterday. I was sharing a link from, I'm not sure if you're familiar with NOAA. NOAA is the oceanographic
Oh,
agency
okay.
for the United States,
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
they have some great stuff on there. And there was some
Okay,
cute little video things on there.
good.
So I gave them that on that. I post events on my website, which is
Okay,
thirdcareerpress.com. To email me, they can just use my name at Gmail.
okay.
And
And I think I saw that you have a free coloring book on your website. Is that
yes,
right?
yes,
Okay.
anyone who signs up on the website to get onto my emailing list will
Okay.
automatically, when they sign up, let me just grab that. Will automatically get a copy.
Cute. Okay.
And again, this is for different age groups.
Okay.
There's little puzzles, there's little crossword puzzles, there's coloring, lots of
Okay.
coloring. So
So that's on your website, and then they
yeah,
just print that out themselves. And
correct.
okay. Well, we'll put that link in there too. I'll get all that into the show notes.
Thank you. Somebody said to me, "Can I have an extra copy?" My kids took mine.
That's funny. Oh my goodness. Maybe that's its own project someday.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, I have to ask, because the podcast started out as Books and Brew, as live, on my Facebook page. When you're writing, what would be in your cup? You have to tell us that.
My cup is a cup of tea.
Cute. Okay. Tea is good.
Tea is good. I try not to drink caffeine. This is herbal tea. I try not to drink caffeine past, like 10, 11 o'clock
Oh, yeah.
in the morning.
Same.
And on occasion, depending upon who's the rest of the group, maybe a glass of wine.
Perfect. Especially if you're reading.
Yeah.
Right? Then you get the wine.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So tell me this. Is there anything, before we wrap up, is there anything that you think people need to know about you or your books before we say goodbye here? And I will, again, like I said, I'll put all your links in the show notes for everyone. And if you can send me the link to that other book that you told us about too, that would be great. Is there something else that you think people need to know about you?
Well, just that, as I said, I'm in my 70s and
Amazing.
I'm not ready to sit down and do nothing. So I'm sure I will have more to come. I kidded around, and it's someplace on my website, maybe on my bio, that says 20 plus years in medical pathology, 20 plus years in clinical social work. So 20 plus years must be for writing. And if I do that, I'll be in my 90s.
Perfect. I see it happening.
Well, I have to tell you, I have friends right now. The oldest friend I have, and we just had lunch the other day, is 94.
Oh my goodness.
And still very much alert and aware with everything.
Love it.
I have friends down to little ones. I love to talk to people. John says, that's a social worker in you.
Might be.
But I do. I'm pretty much a very happy, upbeat person. And I can only hope for good things for children, because the next generation is going to have more to contend with.
We always do, right?
Yeah.
Every generation has something that they've got to deal with. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
See what happens next. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show. It's been so fun.
Thank you.
Is there something else you think people need to know? I'm sorry. I felt like
I was just going to say, I hope people go to my website and sign up. subscribe, I guess is the better word to use, and wait for your, you can print out your copy of the workbook, playbook, I should say. It's not a workbook, it's a playbook. And don't hesitate to email me if you have a question, if you have something that you want to ask about which book might be better for a particular age or what have you.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again. And yes, please send me the link to the other book. I've got the links to your 3 books that are here. And as soon as you get the next book out, let us know, and we'll post it on our Facebook page and stuff for you, so we can advertise that for you and get it out there.
It's been a wonderful experience this time, but since I'm working for you, it's been wonderful. So thank you.
Aw, thanks so much, Halina. Halina is a member of the Authors Allies Roundtable Marketing Membership, which we started last year. So she's been schmoozing with the other authors, and I know you've given several pieces of good advice to the rest of them as well. It's wonderful to be able to all share and collaborate on things.
Absolutely.
Makes it a lot more fun too.
Yes.
A whole lot more fun. So wonderful.
Okay.
Well, I will send you the links to the show so you can share it when you get done.
Thank you so much. Much
Absolutely.
appreciated. Take care.
That's all for this episode of Authors Allies. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of the literary world. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll have more fascinating interviews, book reviews, and marketing tips. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Leave us a review and share us with a friend. To get your free copy of our ebook, 10 Steps to Your Ultimate Book Marketing Plan, be sure to head over to our show notes. Until next time, happy reading and writing.
Tired of drowning in marketing tasks? Stressed about book launches and social media? You're not alone. The Authors Allies Roundtable Done With You Marketing Membership is your escape. Join a community of authors who understand. Learn proven strategies for creating captivating media kits, running successful ad campaigns, and hosting unforgettable book launches. Weekly meetings, also recorded for your convenience, cover everything from email, marketing, and social media mastery to in-person event planning. Plus, access a treasure trove of worksheets, templates, and resources designed to simplify your marketing efforts. Stop trading precious writing time for marketing madness. The Authors Allies Roundtable is your path to stress-free, profitable writing. Visit www.authorsallies.com to learn more and join today.